Ready to elevate your credit understanding and score? With insider tips and a plan, you can take action to improving your score, which can save thousands in unnecessary finance charges. Let's tackle today's topic with your coach, Credit Christy.
Hey, it's Christy, your credit coach. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. Today, let's talk about the difference between a collection and a charge-off. I speak with so many people that see on their credit report a charge-off and they just presume it's out of their hair, it's off the paper, it's written off for the business, that they are not responsible for that collection or that obligation to that creditor any longer. So I do want to squash a few myths, share some information, and explain the difference and the impact that a collection and a charge-off have on your credit report. So here we go. A collection account would appear if you are 120 days late or longer on a payment obligation to a creditor. That trade line can become a collection. It can be an installment loan, such as a student loan, auto loan, or personal loan, or it can be a revolving account, which a revolving is a credit card account. If this trade line becomes a collection, that means the creditor has not been paid as agreed, and it becomes this negative status of a collection. It can be longer than 120 days, but no earlier than 120 days late. If that collection account doesn't prove to be able to collect payment as agreed from you, they might sell it to a collection agency to collect. And that collection agency might buy it for a very small portion of what's to be collected. So that way, anything that they get above and beyond what they've paid for your trade line that is outstanding, they receive. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have a $500 balance with your credit card company, and it has gone into collection status because you haven't made payments on that for at least 120 days. And let's say that creditor says, you know what, I don't know that this person is going to pay, and they sell this bad debt essentially to a collection agency. That collection agency might just buy it for $100 or $150. And if they can squeeze $250 or $300 out of you to settle, or if they say, we're not settling, you owe us $500, they make that difference between what they paid for it and what they can collect from you. And then that original creditor got something for that bad debt from the collection agency that bought it from them. If that first collection agency cannot collect from you, they might sell it to another collection agency. And then their efforts will start. So this one negative trade line could become several negative trade lines. And every time something new as a negative, as a collection, hits your credit, it can have a true negative impact. I've seen anywhere from 50 to 150 points of a drop in credit scores because of a new collection. Now, collections still have to go by the date of last activity from the original creditor. So they will drop off after 7 years from the original date that the original debt went into collection status. So the way that your trade lines report on your credit report is either R for revolving, I for installment, or O for other. And a collection is typically neither an I or an R. A lot of times it shows up as an O. And if that's the case, if that's how they are reporting, the balance is irrelevant on that other account. So whether it's a $10 collection or a $10,000 collection, the impact on your score doesn't really change. The weight is truly based on your date of last activity. And that's why paying off or settling a collection may lower your credit score because you're actually renewing that date of last activity for that collection account. So if a collection account is, say, 2 or 3 years old and you go and you pay it off, they can report it with a new date of last activity. And again, the balance is irrelevant. So if it's still reporting as an open collection, it's not really going to help your credit report. Now, having a closed collection is slightly better than having an open collection. In a perfect world for you, you really want that collection status to be removed completely. Now, if it's a secondary collection agency, so in other words, that original creditor, say your credit card, they sold it to a collection agency. A lot of times the collection agency that purchases that bad debt in an effort to collect from you, they will do a pay to delete. Not always, but often. So if you'd like to know more about that, I have an episode called Pay to Delete for some additional details. But that would wipe that collection completely off of your credit record. That original creditor that you owed and you had all of those late payments, that unfortunately will remain on your credit report because they have an obligation to report fully and truthfully your payment history. Now let's shift to a charge-off. I told you a collection can show up for 7 years. A charge-off can actually show up for 7 years plus 180 days. So what is a charge-off? A charge-off is essentially a type of collection trade line, and it's called a charge-off just strictly for accounting purposes of that creditor. In other words, they wrote off your bad debt saying, there's no way we're going to be able to collect on this. It does not mean that you are not obligated to repay that amount that's due to them. So just for emphasis, a charge-off does not mean that it is canceled by the creditor. It is simply an accounting measure on their side saying, yeah, we're probably not going to get repaid on this one. But here's the deal. A charge-off has a much bigger chance of being reported on your credit report as a revolving, which means if there's an amount open or due to them, not only is it a negative mark against your credit, it's also reporting as a maxed out account. Remember just a minute ago, I stated how a collection is typically not reported as an installment loan or a revolving, but a charge-off in most cases, it is reported as either an installment or a revolving. And if it is a revolving, it typically shows that this trade line is maxed out. So talk about a double whammy. You've got this negative new, essentially collection because it's a negative mark, but then you also have this maxed out revolving trade line. I have a current client I'm working with that had a number of collections and charge-offs, and when we did a simulator to figure out how to improve his credit scores to get him out of the 500s and into the 600s to have a chance at getting approved for his mortgage, the recommendation was to pay off 2 charge-offs and 1 collection. Those charge-offs were thousands of dollars owed, and they were reporting as an open revolving account, and it was slaughtering his debt utilization numbers in addition to having a couple of new negative marks. So he called the company that was servicing that bad debt and he settled with them. He didn't even have to pay for the entire amount. And they're going to update that charge off to show that it is no longer open, which is going to remove that negative debt utilization. And then it's going to be a satisfied zero balance closed out charge off. And that will bring him enough points to get over that threshold of into the 600s. Remember, just by settling or paying a charge off or a collection does not make it go away. It can have a better effect on your credit report, but it can also hurt your credit report. And so that's the question, is if you've got a collection or a charge off, do you pay or do you not pay? Because when you pay, it can lower your credit score because it's now renewing that date of last activity. And if you have a new date of last activity on a negative account, that can actually counteract the paying off of the collection. This is anything but a fun game, isn't it? The rules are so jaded and annoying, I know. If you are applying for a mortgage, speak with your loan officer about what they recommend for you to do in regards to paying off a collection or a charge-off. In many cases, they'll say, don't touch it. I say that a lot to my clients as well, because if it's old enough, that date of last activity renewal will counteract any good we do by paying off that collection. Charge-offs, on the other hand, are a different story. Oftentimes, paying off a charge-off or settling a charge-off will have a really positive impact on your credit score. Not always, but typically a better chance than what a collection account would. Again, it's because those balances have relevancy in most cases with a charge off. So closing that out, making it a zero balance that is owed to them, can really boost your score. I believe it never hurts to pay off debt that is owed if it truly is yours. Again, if you are working on an upcoming major purchase, such as financing your home, speak with your loan officer before you make any changes. And I hope this information clears up the fact that a charge-off does not mean you're off the hook from paying that creditor back for money you are responsible to pay them. And just to round this out, just so you know, charge-offs and collection accounts still have to go with the original delinquency date. So if you became delinquent 2 years ago on that credit card, then those collection accounts can only report for 5 more years from right now, even if they just became a collection, because it has to go off of that original delinquency date from the original creditor. And remember, a charge-off is 7 years plus 180 days. So it can actually hang out a little bit longer, but it still goes by the original delinquency date. If you have questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer your questions. You can email me at questions@creditchristy.com and let's connect on social. You can find me on virtually any platform at Credit Christy. Thank you so much for being here for another episode. And until next time, my friends, stay well.
Subscribe now and share with a friend to stay in the loop for new credit content and insider tips to maximize your credit knowledge. And follow Credit Christy on Instagram.